before the modak, before the sacred throne, before the prayers. This is the story of a child who died, and what the universe had to break in order to bring him back. To understand what happened at that gate, you first have to understand who Parvati is. Not as a goddess, not as Shiva's consort, not as the divine mother of the cosmos. As a woman, Ma Parvati, the daughter of the mountains, the embodiment of Shakti, the living force of creation itself, had a life that, by every divine measure, should have been complete. She had performed tapas so severe that the universe shook. She had won the heart of Mahadev, the one god no force in existence could move. She lived in the palace of Kailash, at the top of the world, surrounded by the music of the cosmos itself. And yet, there was something that was entirely hers, not shared with the cosmos, not belonging to the balance of creation and destruction. Just hers. She wanted a child, not as a divine being assigned to her by fate, but one she created herself, with her own hands, from the essence of her own soul. So one day, in the sacred privacy of her chambers, Ma Parvati took the sandalwood paste she used to bathe, and she began to shape. She shaped him from her own being, her own creative power flowing into every detail. His eyes, shaped like hers, dark and ancient and filled with light. His hands, small, perfect, reaching. His face, carrying a peace that only comes from being completely loved, before you have even drawn your first breath. And when she breathed life into that form, he opened his eyes, and he looked at her. And in that first look, before a single word was spoken, he already knew one thing with the complete certainty of a newly created soul. She was everything. He existed for her. That was enough. She held him and said, "You are mine. You belong to me. Guard my home. Let no one, pass through that gate without my word." And the child, who had no name yet, who had no history, no age, no past, looked at the gate and walked to it and stood there. Let me ask you something. Have you ever loved something so completely that the idea of failing it never even entered your mind? Not bravery, not courage, not even devotion in the way we usually understand it. Something simpler, something more absolute. That is what the child at the gate was. He was not a warrior. He had no training. He had never seen a battle. He was, in every sense of the word, a child. But he had been given one command by the only being in the universe who mattered to him. And so he stood. Through the cold Himalayan nights when the temperature dropped below what flesh should survive. Through storms that bent ancient trees like blades of grass. Through the deep silence of Kailash where not even the wind dared make a sound. He stood, not because he was fearless, not because he was powerful, but because the alternative, the idea of failing her, was simply not a concept that existed in him. Pure devotion has no strategy. It has no exit plan. It does not calculate the odds. It just stands. And so he stood, until the day the atmosphere changed. There is a particular quality to the silence that precedes Shiva's arrival. The ancient texts describe it in different ways. Some say the air becomes heavy, like the moment before lightning. Some say all living creatures go still, birds, beasts, the rivers themselves. Some say it is not silence at all, but the absence of all sound except one, the deep, subsonic vibration of the universe recognizing its source. On this day, on Kailash, all of it was true. The child felt it before he saw it. Something was coming, something vast, something ancient, something that did not know the meaning of the word obstacle. Lord Shiva, the Mahadev, the Nilkant, the destroyer of illusion, the one who drank the poison of the universe to save creation itself, and laughed while he did it. He walked toward his home on Kailash, as he had walked 10,000 times before, unhurried, absolute, expecting nothing between him and his door. And then he stopped, because standing at the gate to his own home was a small boy, with large dark eyes, a flower garland around his neck, a small golden staff in his hands, looking directly at Shiva, without moving, without flinching, without any visible understanding of what he was looking at. Shiva spoke. "Step aside." The child did not move. Shiva spoke again. this time with the authority that had silenced armies of demons, that had stopped the rotation of the cosmos itself on one occasion, that had never, not once in the entire history of existence, been ignored. The child did not move. Something ancient shifted in the air between them. Not yet conflict. Something earlier than conflict. The moment when two immovable forces first recognize each other. Shiva sent his Ganesh first. The Ganesh, his divine army, were not warriors in the ordinary sense. They were forces of nature given form. Grotesque, powerful, loyal, beings that had participated in the destruction of entire worlds. They moved toward the child like a wave, and the child raised his staff. I want you to understand what you are seeing here. This is a newly created being, hours old in cosmic terms. He has never trained. He has never fought. He has no divine weapon of consequence. He has no army behind him. He has no plan. He has one thing, a command from his mother, and the absolute inability to disobey it. What happened next, the ancient accounts describe with a word that has no clean translation. Something between awe and confusion and the particular discomfort of watching something impossible happen in front of you. The child fought, not with skill, not with strategy, with something that the Ganesh had no counter for. Pure, immovable, conviction. Every time a Gano advanced, that small golden staff swung. Every time he was struck, he rose. Every time the odds became more impossible, his feet, those small bare feet on the cold stone of Kailash, did not move one single inch from the gate. Nandi, the great white bull warrior, the chief of the Ganesh, the most devoted being in creation besides the child himself, stepped forward personally. What followed was the most unequal contest the mountain had ever seen, and the mountain watched a child hold his ground against the mightiest warrior in Shiva's army. The gods in the heavens had gathered to watch by now. Indra, Vishnu, Brahma, all watching from the celestial realm, all silent, all witnessing something they could not explain. A child who should not still be standing, still standing. And in the eyes of Shiva, the destroyer, the transformer, the one who had seen every possible form of power, there was something unexpected. Recognition, not of the child, of the quality in the child. He had seen devotion before. He had been worshipped by gods and sages for longer than the universe could count. But this was something purer than worship. This was a being with nothing. No divine power, no cosmic authority, no history, no lineage. Standing against everything, because he had been told to. And then Shiva made his decision. I will not rush past this, because the story always rushes past this. The accounts move quickly from the battle to the transformation, from the conflict to the resolution, as if what happened in between was just a plot point. It was not a plot point. The third eye opened, and the child, that perfect, newly created, completely devoted child, who had never once in his entire existence failed his mother, fell. The gate was clear. Shiva walked forward. The mountain was silent. And somewhere, in the inner chambers of the palace of Kailash, Ma Parvati felt something that no language has ever been able to fully describe. Not news, not a vision, not a sound, a silence where there had been a presence, an absence that arrived the way the shadow does. Not with drama, not with announcement, just suddenly, unbearably there. She walked to the entrance, and the world changed. There are forces in this universe that the ancient texts describe as being beyond the power of any single deity to contain. The eruption of a star, the dissolution of an age, the grief of a mother. What happened on Kailash in the moments that followed was not rage in the way we understand rage. It was not revenge. It was not war. It was Shakti herself, the living creative force of the entire universe, experiencing the one thing it had never experienced before. The destruction of something she had made from her own soul. The Himalayan peaks began to tremble. Rivers changed their course mid-flow. The heavens went dark. Flowers, across every realm of existence, turned to ash. The gods who had been watching from the heavens began to panic, not because they feared for themselves, but because they understood something that Shiva, in this one extraordinary moment, had miscalculated. There is a hierarchy in the cosmos. Shiva is its apex, the destroyer, the transformer, the supreme. But Shakti is not below Shiva in that hierarchy. Shakti is the power through which Shiva acts. Without her, there is no creation, there is no sustenance, there is nothing. And now she stood at the gate of Kailash, and the universe held its breath, and every divine being who had ever existed understood one thing with absolute clarity. This had to be fixed. Now, whatever it cost. They say that in that moment, Shiva, the great Mahadev, the one who laughs at death itself, knelt beside the child, and that what was in his face was not the composure of a god. It was the face of someone who understood, for the first time, the full weight of what had happened. Not a battle won, not an obstacle removed, a mistake, the kind of mistake that echoes through eternity. He gave the command, "Go north. The first living creature you find, facing north. Bring me its head." The Ganesh moved with a speed that bent time, through forests and realms and sacred spaces, searching, and in a forest to the north, standing alone in the deep green silence of ancient trees, in the golden light of a morning it could not know would be its last. A sacred white elephant, facing north, still, serene, completely unaware of the cosmic machinery that had suddenly oriented itself around him. In the ancient accounts, the elephant is sometimes described as divine itself, placed there, intended, a sacrifice written into the fabric of things. Long before the story began, whether by design or by the extraordinary strangeness of fate, the elephant was there, and its head was brought back to Kailash. Shiva placed the elephant's head upon the child's still form, with hands that carried, for the first time in divine memory, something that looked like tenderness and regret in equal measure. The sacred chants began. The divine energies converged. The universe, which had been holding its breath, began, slowly, impossibly, to listen. And then, a breath, one breath, small, uncertain, but there. The trunk curled, the enormous ears stirred, the great eyes opened. Different now, yes, changed beyond recognition and form. But in them, in the depths of those ancient divine eyes, the same thing that had been in the eyes of the child, who had opened them for the first time that morning. Complete, absolute, unwavering. Her, Parvati knelt, and he looked at her. And whatever words exist in whatever language you speak, none of them are adequate for this moment, because she recognized him, not the form, the soul, unchanged, unbroken, still entirely, completely hers. When Shiva spoke next, the sound carried through every realm of existence simultaneously. He looked at this transformed being, this child who had died at his own gate, and returned in a form that was somehow larger than what had been lost. And he spoke a name into the universe for the first time. Ganesha, Gana, the divine assembly. Isha, the Lord, Lord of all Ganesh, chief of the divine. And then the decree, the one that stands to this day, the one that has never been revoked and never will be. From this moment forward, in every world, in every realm, in every age that has been and every age yet to come, before any journey begins, before any prayer rises, before any ritual commences, before any new chapter of any life is opened, his name is spoken first, not as a rule, not as a formality, but as a recognition of what it means to stand at a gate with nothing but love and refuse to move, of what it means to be created from the purest intention, of the purest force in the universe, of what it means to be remade from grief into something the universe had never seen before. The gods assembled on Kailash bowed. Every deva, every divine being, every force in every realm, bow before the one who was a child that morning, and is now the first among all. Today, 5,000 years later, in temples and homes and street corners and hospital rooms, and the first whisper of someone who is about to begin something terrifying, his name is still spoken first, not because of a decree from a god, not because of a tradition written in a book, but because somewhere, in the deep architecture of human consciousness, we all understand something that cannot be taught. Every beginning is a gate, and at every gate, there is something that must be faced before you are allowed to pass through. Fear, doubt, the weight of what could go wrong, the voice that says you are not enough, the wall of everything that has come before you. And Ganesha, the one who stood at a gate with nothing, who fell and was remade into something greater, who carries in his very form the marks of a story that does not have a simple ending. He is not there to make the path easy. He is there to remind you that the path was faced before by someone with less than you, who stood anyway. This is not myth. This is not legend. This is not belief. This is the oldest story ever told about what it means to begin. Jai Shri Ganesha.